And this one, we're going to delete getName for now. We'll revisit that in a minute. This one is going to be called, it's going to be a public function, and it's going to be called call. And call takes in a name, and it takes a collection of arguments. Now what happens is call runs whenever a function can't be found in a particular class. So let's say I delete getAddress here. If I go back to killer PHP here, and I echo or I refresh, you'll notice nothing happens. If I comment out this call function, you'll see that I get call to undefined method, blah, 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 get address, it can't find it. But with this call function, we don't get any errors anymore. If I actually echo this, then I can say has been called. And if I refresh this again, you'll see that call has been called is echoed instead of, whatever the address is. So using this approach, we can dynamically create methods in our class. So in this case, I want to make sure that whenever I do something that starts with get, it immediately gets called, or it actually returns the value of a variable. So we're going to write a little bit of code here. I need to get the method prefix, which in this case is a substring of the name, and we're going to go from 0 to 3. So if I just do an echo of the method prefix, we can see that the method prefix is get. If I go to echo get address and I put, XYZ address, then I'm going to get XYZ. So basically it's just getting the first 3 characters in the name of the method. The next thing I want to do is I want to get the rest of the method, the property that it's accessing, because there's quite an obvious repetition here. We could have get address. Actually, before we move further, I'm just going to create first name. Actually, yeah, let's do first name, last name, protected email. So now we have all these properties. You could imagine that if we had getters and setters for all of this, we would have, instead of a 10 or 20 line class, we would probably have a 50 or 60 or 70 line class. So things would start growing rather quickly. And now I'm also going to grab the method property. Now the method property is, in this case, it would be address, but it could also be first name or last name or email. A property is another way of saying it's a variable sitting inside of a class or an instance of a class. So the property here is address. And right now we're going to be getting the property dynamically. So I'm going to say method property equals, and I'm going to start by getting everything after the name and the 4th character. So if I echo method property, I'll get address, which is very interesting. Actually, we want the 3rd character. So then we get address, which is great, except that we want this A to be a lowercase address, right? We're following a very strict naming convention here. It's called, I think it's called camel case, or Hungarian notation or something. Anyways, it doesn't matter. Basically, the first character is lowercase, and then if we want to have subsequent names or nouns inside of our variable name, then they're also uppercased. So in order to do this properly, instead of getting the 3rd character, I'm going to get the 4th character, and I'm going to grab the 3rd character and I'm going to lowercase it by doing str to lower. And then I'll just concatenate the two. So now I should get address, lowercase. So we're almost there. The next step, instead of echoing the method property, is to actually just return it. So I could just say return this method property, and I'll get Eiffel Tower. So you see, instead of actually going in here and saying, return this address, I can actually pass in a variable, and it'll do exactly the same thing, which is really cool. So let's see if we can create something a little more generic for handling all of these cases. So I'm going to have, we want to return the method property in the instance where something begins with get, but we also want to have our setters to work dynamically as well. So I'm going to get rid of set address here, and let's see if we can make that dynamic as well. To do that, I'm going to start with a switch statement. And a switch statement is exactly like else if, or else and if, except that you're just declaring it a little differently. So you'll see what this looks like in a second. So a switch statement basically allows you to create different cases based on a particular variable. So if method prefix equals get, then we'll do stuff where method prefix equals get, and then we'll break. And then if the case is set, then we'll do something where the method prefix equals set. And then the default case, in other words, it's anything but get or set, we're actually going to throw an exception. And throwing an exception is a way of basically telling the programmer or the user or basically your application that something didn't go right.